Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Everyone's here. We're going to start. Ann O'Dwyer, our vice chair, had some technical issues, so she's on the phone, but she's extremely present. Okay, we'll get things going. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law 30A, Section 18, and the governor's July 16, 2022 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body. This meeting of the Great Barrington Finance Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information on the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner. Please see the instructions at the top of the agenda. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Pursuant to MGL 7C 30A Section 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body, or may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. So Mark, do we have any, we're recording the meeting. Is there any, do we know of anyone else recording the meeting? Probably not.
We are recording the meeting and we have one member of the media that may be recording.
Okay, terrific. Okay, so let's call the meeting to order with a roll call vote. Milena?
Yes, here.
Richard?
Here.
Madonna? You're on mute. Still on. You're on mute. She's raising her hand. I think I'm going to interpret the raise of the hand as a statement that she is here. We see her visually, okay, and she's nodding. And my name is Philip Ornstein, and I'm here as well.
And Ann is here too. Ann's here.
I'm sorry, I forgot you. Ann, on the phone. Are you there? Yes. Sorry. Out of sight, out of mind. Right? Sorry.
Right, no problem.
All right. Committee member announcements or statements. Does anyone wish to say something? Seeing none, I will assume we're all set there. Okay, so tonight we are joined by a guest speaker, Sheila La Barbera. Am I pronouncing that name correctly?
Close enough. Yes, Bill.
Close enough. All right. Okay,
yes.
That's good. I know that feeling. And
Yeah.
she is the executive director of the Berkshire County Retirement System, otherwise known as the Pension Fund. And just as a brief context, when we were doing some research on our OPEB project, retiree medical benefits, you know, it definitely sort of is in the same universe as the pension fund. I reached out to Sheila with a couple of questions, and she was very gracious to answer them. And I thought that it would be very constructive for us to hear her just describe her function in the pension fund in brief, just to improve our understanding of the pension fund. And just again, as I mentioned previously, I'll say it again, you know, to be clear, this committee has zero authority to tinker or modify the pension benefits of current employees and prior employees who are now retirees. Our motivation here is just to better understand some of the characteristics of this non-discretionary expense that the town has, and try to get a better understanding of sort of its trajectory and rate of increase or decline over the next several years, and how that might have some impact in some other decision making that we do at the Finance Committee. With that being said, I'll turn it over to Sheila. Sheila provided some pages from various reports that her organization prepares. They're part of much larger documents that she provided after this meeting. If anyone would like to see those larger documents, I'll be happy to send them to you, but they were much too large to include in the packet. So please go ahead, Sheila.
Thank you, Phil, and thanks for inviting me here tonight. And all of the documents in their entirety that were supplied to you are all public documents. So feel free, anybody that wishes to have them, they can either get them from you. If they have any questions and want to call me, they're more than happy to do that too. So thank you to the committee for inviting me here tonight. What I wanted to do is take a couple of minutes. Phil and I have had a couple of discussions over the last couple of weeks regarding the finances. And so tonight's presentation to the Finance Committee will really focus more on the financial aspects of the retirement system, not so much the plan benefits for the members. So that's a whole nother presentation. And we will actually be in the town of Great Barrington, I believe on the Friday, October 28th, making a presentation for retirement benefits for Mark has graciously allowed us to come down. We're going to provide a couple seminars during the day. So if anybody's interested in plan benefits, that's what we're going to do then. So tonight I'll do a quick overview kind of the retirement system in general, and then we'll talk a little bit about the pages that Phil has marked for us. And you can stop me along the way if you'd like. If it's easier, we can ask questions at the end. It's whatever you prefer to do. So basically get started, kind of a retirement overview, just to give you all a background of the retirement system. The retirement system, Berkshire County retirement system, was established in 1937. It was established by the Mass Legislature. We are governed by what's called Chapter 32. There are in fact 104 retirement systems in Massachusetts. There are county systems, municipal systems, the state retirement system, and the teachers retirement system. They're all 104 are very separate. We all operate under the same Chapter 32 laws. Our governing agency is called PARAC, that stands for the Public Employee Retirement Administration Commission. They are in fact our governing agency, and that's who we answer to. They are located in Somerville, Mass. Locally, the Berkshire County Retirement Board is made up of 5 members. 2 of those members are elected from the membership. 1 is an elected treasurer, 1 is an appointed chairman, and 1 is an appointed member that has is not tied to the Berkshire County retirement system in any way. So they can't be a member of our system or anything like that. So they make up the local board. The local board is responsible primarily for the investment of our pension fund, which hovers around about $320 million, give or take, based on our next, we'll have our financials for, I was hoping to have them tonight, but we'll probably have them the next couple of days from PRIT. Our funds are currently invested with, which is called the PRIT Fund, the Pension Reserve Investment Trust. They have about $80 billion worth of pension monies from the state retirement systems across the state of Massachusetts. It is basically a pooled fund. All of our money is invested with them 100%. The local board also ensures compliance to Chapter 32, the pension regulations. Our board members are compensated. Board members receive a stipend of $3,600 a year, and the chairman is currently compensated at a stipend of $5,600. The county retirement system has 3 staff members, of which I am the executive director, and we have 2 retirement coordinators, Jill Hersey and Brian Shepard. So the office is made up of 3 full-time staff members. Basically, as staff members, we oversee the implementation of Chapter 32, primarily pension benefits to all of our active and retired members. Currently, the Berkshire County retirement system has about 2,500 members, about 1,500 plus or minus active and inactive members, and about 900 retired members. The retirement system plan is a defined benefit plan. It is not a defined contribution plan. So the benefits that are paid by the retirement system are based on 3 things: age, service, and salary. In Massachusetts, the retirement plan is basically a replacement for Social Security. So in Massachusetts, public employees are not eligible to participate in Social Security. We do not contribute to Social Security, as Massachusetts does not have what's called a Section 218 agreement with the federal government. So basically all of your employees, full-time, any of those that are 20 hours a week or more considered full-time employees, they belong to us at the retirement system. anybody that you have that works less than 20 hours a week participates in what's called an OBRA plan. So with that, and I don't know if anybody has any questions, that's just kind of a quick overview of the retirement system, and kind of what we do. And I don't know if anybody has any general questions about that, because like I said, I'm not going to concentrate on the actual plan benefits tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about the financial stability really of our pension system. So now, Phil, if I understand, and I don't, these are not in any particular order that are in your packet, but I've kind of labeled them. I kind of wanted to start with the Berkshire County Retirement System. It was a page from our, we just recently had, annually we do an investment, the PRIT fund. They send out the client service officers, and they do a review of our investments with them, with the PRIT fund for the year. We just had that in August, I believe it was August 30th board meeting. And there's a page from that presentation, and that basically gives us
And
our.
I'm sorry, I believe that's the one landscape page in the packet.
Yes, it is. And it's
Okay.
actually page 29, if that
Right.
helps. It just says Berkshire
Okay.
County Retirement, net of fees returns on June 30th.
Right.
So that just kind of gives you an overview, kind of a simple overview really of our funds that are on deposit with are invested with the PRIT fund. The Berkshire County Retirement System as of June 30th had $312 million, almost 313 million. You can see what our returns were for, we are 100% invested. For the month. It was a negative 3.9%. For the quarter, we were down about 8.5%. For the fiscal year, again, we're down about 3.75. Year to date, 10%. And then it gives you the averages over the 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year, and since inception, which are significant. We have been fully funded or fully invested in the PRIT fund since 1998. And we've been in the PRIT system since its inception in 1988. But we were not fully invested with them. Our current
Sheila?
assets, sure.
Sorry, I'll ask a question on this page. When
Sure.
you say fully invested, can you clarify what that means? Because that could mean different things to different people.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
We have about $320 million. All of our money is invested in the PRIT fund. And the PRIT fund basically manages, it's a pool fund, so we own a piece of the pooled fund. They manage all of the money for state and teachers, and then systems like ours who've decided to put the money 100% in the PRIT fund. The PRIT fund is, and I wish I had I probably do have the page. You're not going to have it in front of you, but the PRIT fund has a core asset allocation. By being invested with them, fully funded, we participate in the same asset allocation as the state and teachers' retirement systems. So they have basically a global equity, they have core fixed, value added, private equity, real estate, timberland. They have, and then you can drill down within some of those asset classes. But our monies are with them 100%. And like I said, we participate in the same asset allocation as the core fund, which is the PRIT fund was originally set up to manage the state and teachers fund. So we participate with them. So I hope that. So
right.
We don't
So
have
that exactly. So it's not there's some, it's again, probably beyond the scope of the conversation, but there's some sort of core asset allocation decision that's being made. So your money, when you say it's fully invested, that doesn't mean in the extreme that all that money is invested in stocks, for example.
No, we have a very diversified portfolio. The PRIT fund has actually been, they have some of their recent accolades. They have really, the PRIT fund has really done some of the recognition that they have had over the last couple of years is They have an equity portfolio that was ranked number 3 out of 106 US public pension systems. They were recognized as an Institutional Investor Partnership of the Year finalist. They were one of 4 finalists for the allocation of that award. They were recently and I apologize, that's my glasses. As I get older, I can't, the smaller this stuff is, the harder it is to read. But the institutional investors, the completion strategies, they were one of 6 finalists for Public Plan of the Year. They are a CFA Institute Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. They are a founding signatory of that for the CFA Institute, and it's the first ever Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Code for investment professionals. They're ranked number 7 for assets managed by diverse managers by pensions and investments, a certificate of achievement of excellence for financial reporting. That was in June of 2022. And for the 4th consecutive year, they've completed the CFA institution's global investment performance standards. So they really do a great job as far as the diversity within our portfolio to their strategic plan, if you will, is one of to maintain assets. I mean, obviously the assets have to grow, and but they manage it very, very well, and they do it in a way to manage the risk so that they get as much return as they can against as little risk as they can. And they do a very, very good job of that. So we've been very happy with them. We've, over the years since 1998, when we first joined, there actually was they were trying to encourage retirement systems to join the PRIT fund. And the Berkshire County retirement system probably was gifted by our participation. The state used to make allocations to your fund based on your level of participation. And I think over a period of 3 to 5 years, we probably got grants, if you will, of about almost $2 million of money from the state just for participating. But the returns have been great, and we've done very, very well with the PRIT fund. And you can see I probably should have put a few more in here just to kind of show you what the growth of the fund was. But you'll see the growth of the retirement fund for Berkshire County that's based on the investment. So
Thank you
for that one.
Phil, Ann has her hand up.
Ann, please go ahead.
Yeah, can I talk?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I guess I just thank you for all that. This is really interesting. And I guess I was not aware, and I want to just clarify. So town employees, they are not paying into Social Security for when they retire or stop working. So their retirement benefit includes basically, a Social Security substitute for the wages they earned as a town employee. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, wow, that's that's important that we are able to fund that. So can I ask? So it's a retirement benefit. Are there other benefits that are woven into the total expenditure for benefits?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Yes, the answer to that is yes, because there's an array of benefits that are available for retirement purposes, which in general is people join the retirement system. They work, you have to have at least 10 years of service and be 60 years old now to retire. That's a minimum pension. But there are also benefits in there for survivors. There's benefits in there for disability. So there are other benefits that are built into the plan. Yes.
I see. Okay. And is this true for all Massachusetts municipal employees or just small,
Yes.
certain towns?
No, it's for all. Yeah, the Mass General Laws, Chapter 32, the creation of the pension laws govern all of the retirements. We all operate the same. Your pension is portable within Massachusetts. So say somebody worked for the town of Great Barrington and they wanted to go to work in Falmouth, they could go to work in Falmouth, and their pension, their credible service, and their monies, their annuity account would follow them there. And so it's portable within the state of Massachusetts.
Oh, so I just, I taught at UMass Boston for a little while, and is that why I get this sort of pension statement from them? That's the retirement.
Probably. Did you belong to the state retirement
Wow.
system?
I assume I probably did. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
All
You should
right.
investigate
All
that.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea. This was like 30 years ago. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood that. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, please
So-
proceed. Yeah.
Okay, so does anybody else, are there any other questions regarding PRIT? I mean, that's where our money is, and I know that's one of the big, questions is where's the money and then how is it being invested? I can assure you that that's one thing that the board used some of it was luck, but a lot of it was foresight to do that, to change in 1998, and it's worked very well for us. The second, just to kind of go over some of the financial highlights, which was page 5, and these, which is the next one, and it says financial highlights on it. This is actually from our financial audit. So we are audited annually for our financials and our GASB, 67, 68. Our auditor has been Melanson, and we've been with Melanson now for 3 or 4 years. So basically, we're going to take a quick look at, this is our year-end 2021 financials that were prepared. So some of the financial highlights, just so that you kind of have an understanding of what we did in 2021. So at the end of December 31st of 2021, we actually had $358 million, almost $359 million in our account. It was the highest. That's the highest that it's been in ever. And we had investment gains of $56 million in 2021. The employer and contribution, employer, and we'll get into the assessment a little bit, but employer and employee contributions, which include assessment, member deductions, transfers, makeups, rollovers, was about $17.5 million. The benefits that were paid to our plan participants, that includes refunds, transfers, annuities, and pensions, was about $18 million. And you can see that there's a fair amount of money in our pension payroll every month, which is about $1.5 million a month that we pay out to our pensioners currently. And the last note is, and remember, for our financial audit, they use market value. So the end of 2021, we were 107%, but that's the market value of our assets, not the actuarial value of our assets. So, but you can see the fiduciary position, the net position that we had from 2020 to 2021. You can see that the gain was the $56 million at about 18% that last year. So we did very, very well with our investments. On page 6, you can, again, it kind of lays out for you the difference in the position from 2020 to 2021. Again, at the end of the year, the 58.9 million versus 302 million at the end of 2020. Some things that were notable for our, as we are going through, is a lot of pension systems. It's that time, whether it was the pandemic or it's just the baby boomers. We have a significant, the retirements have increased significantly over the last 2 or 3 years. And so in the calendar year, there was a change of about 7, I think it was almost 8% in the annuity, the pension annuities that we paid from 2020 to 2021. On the last page, you'll see the schedule of the employer application or allocations, I'm sorry. This is actually, and we're going to get into this a little bit more with the actuarial valuation and then our assessments, how that works. But this is the for year end of FY 2022. And in this case, we're talking about Great Barrington. Your assessment to the retirement system was $993,000. and your allocation or your percentage of the retirement system as a whole, you represent 8.58% of the Berkshire County retirement system. So you can see, as you look at this, there's only a few units that are a little bit larger than you, and they are the town of Lee and the town of Lenox. And they're a little bit larger than you because they also have schools. And I think Williamstown is a little bit lower these days, 8.3, because their schools merged with Mount Greylock. So there was a big shift in that school district. So Mount Greylock has gotten a little bit bigger because of that merger, and Williamstown's gotten a little bit smaller. But it shows you what their asset or what their assessment allocation was for FY 2022. And just a note at the bottom of the page, the town of Lanesboro, Lee, New Marlboro, Williamstown, and the Williamstown Fire District years ago participated in what's called an early retirement incentive. That is not an allocation that's split among the other units. It is billed directly to the units that approved that. So they allowed a certain number of people to retire early with an enhanced benefit. Those towns and districts that approved it were responsible for paying that money 100%. So and that's what that we looked at for FY 2022. The one good thing about our audit, and I didn't leave it off intentionally, there were no findings, and we haven't had any findings. So there was no material findings in our audit. So we had a clean audit. A couple things to remember, that the income for the retirement system generated, it's a very finite, the investments, which compromise, most of our income comes from investments, but it comes from investments. It comes from the assessments that we assess to our towns and districts. And it also comes in member deductions.
Gilla, could we pause for some questions? I think we have
Sure.
some.
Sure.
Yeah, and I just
Ri-
asked a question
Richard, go ahead.
about the Berkshire Hills Regional School District line. Now, I imagine because those are the schools within the town of Great Barrington, that a percentage of that is also funded by us, by Great Barrington, right?
Sure. Yes, I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we should also just note that there's a percentage of that, which is probably the largest percentage is coming from Great Barrington as well.
No, that's a good point. We also have a big chunk of that, and we also have the Great Barrington Fire District as well in there. So
Right.
we have a couple of different categories included here.
You don't have a general breakdown for all of the monies towards this system that come from Great Barrington to fund the employees in these other sections, do you?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, because Great Barrington is paying for a percentage of the Berkshire Hills Regional School District fund
Sure.
for pensions, and also for the fire district, which Phil had mentioned. So I don't know if you have a breakdown of
No.
the amount of money that percentage is.
No.
It would be helpful to know all of the costs that.
Yeah, no, I think I have no idea how your assessments to the regional school districts work. So I wouldn't even begin to, the way that we do assessments and the way that we calculate what towns and school districts and things are going to pay are based on their salaries. So their annual pensionable salaries, we take aggregate, the total salaries of all of the pensionable monies that were earned in the Berkshire County retirement units and districts, and then we parse it out based on, so in the aggregate amount of the salaries is divided by your individual. So I would have no idea how any of the funds for, how you are assessed for the regional school districts, because it doesn't really have, I don't even want to
Right,
begin to guess.
that-
'Cause I
yeah,
don't know.
I understand.
And just to follow up, I mean, we would be able to tell from the budget from last year what the line item was that, correct?
Well,
Well-
yeah, I think the way it would work is that the town pays an aggregate assessment for the school district. And then in the school district budget, they're paying their pension expense back to Sheila.
Right.
So we'd have to sort of follow that money so it should be available to figure it out, but we'd have to do that.
And again, it's, I, because I don't know how you do it. I mean, ours is based on salary. I have no idea how you guys are assessed for the school district. So I wouldn't begin to.
Thank you. All right, Milena?
Yeah, I have just a very simple question. Sheila, who gets the audited financials from Great Barrington? Does it come to the finance committee or the select board? Or who sees those numbers?
You mean our financial audit at the end of the year?
Yeah.
It's a public document. It's what most of the towns and districts are looking for are the GASB 67 and 68, which is the last page in here. That's what they usually go to the treasurer.
So the
or
treasurer would have a
some-
copy? Mhm.
They may, and I don't, who's auditing Great Barrington these days? Who's your auditor? Scanlon?
Scanlon.
Yeah, and Tom always gets copies of this. He gets the financials. I think he actually audits 4 or 5 different
And
towns.
do you post it also? Is it publicly available? Do you post it?
Oh, of course, all of our documents are publicly available. I don't know if we have it on our website or not.
Would
If
that
we
be on the
don't, we could,
website?
No,
something
yeah,
simple, we could put it up there. It's not
Okay.
it's, like I said, everything that you have, these are all public documents, so.
Right. It's just a question of having them available for people.
Sure, yeah.
Phil, if I can just mention, we
Please.
are not paying a portion of the fire district.
Right.
As it-
Understood. Yeah, no, I understood. Yeah,
Okay,
very
it
good
did
point.
come up
Very
a
good
few
point.
times, and I just
yeah.
wanted to be clear.
No, very good point. I was referring to the school district. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any other questions regarding the financial audit?
No, looks like we're good. Keep
Okay.
going.
So why don't we go to the actuarial report, and actuarial report is the page, looks like it's page 3, and it starts with the executive summary. So a little bit
It's
about,
earlier in our packet.
I'm sorry.
Earlier in the-
Yeah, it's the fifth. It's the 5th page in the packet.
Of the packet for this material, right?
Correct.
It has,
Or
it has a number 2, an executive summary at the top of the page. So executive
Yes.
summary continues.
Yes. So I picked out 2 of the probably the most important pages, if you will, of our actuarial valuation. Again, this is a document that's available. It's a public report. These documents actually are all available you can either get them from our office or they are online at the Public Employee Retirement Administration Commission. We have we're part of their website. All of our reports and all the documents are all listed there too. So if you want the complete report, you can go there and get it there. The valuation is completed every 2 years. And currently we use our governing agency, PERAC. So the PERAC actuaries are the ones who provide the actuarial valuation for us. At the top of the page, I want to note that, we use a very conservative investment assumption for our returns. And you can see that we are basing our actuarial valuation now on 6.75. And if you look back at our exhibit from the PRIT fund since inception, our investment returns have averaged about 8.1%. So our investment returns have traditionally come in over what our actual valuation has set up. We were at one time as high as 8%, but we've been able to lower it to 6.75%. So, you'll note for the very first column, as of 1/1/21, we are currently at a funded ratio, and we're looking at the very bottom of the page, a funding ratio of 87.4%. That's up from 2019, which was 83.8%. The one thing that we talk about the funding ratio, and for some of those that may or may not be familiar with this, what we're looking for is to be fully funded. That's the goal. And you can see that in both of these columns just above the 87.4%, you can see that there's a $40 million line item, and the $40 million line item is the unfunded liability. So prior to around 19, well before my time, but in the 80s, there was ERISA laws that were federal ERISA laws, and while they don't necessarily apply to the state pension system, they do. In 1988, they decided to put together funding schedules, because up until that time, the retirement systems basically were just operating as a pay-as-you-go. So they weren't putting lots of money away to fund the future liability. They were basically paying the costs of the retirement system at that time. So in 1988, they came up with funding schedules. Over the years, the funding schedules have gotten tighter and tighter. We are required by law to be fully funded by 2038. And the good news is that hopefully before some of the current economic factors that have affected us so adversely, we were scheduled to be fully funded by 2028. So with some of the conservative numbers, we still, depending on how the year ends, we don't have a lot of months left in this year. So calendar year probably is going to be a down year, but we should still be well on our way to be funded, hopefully by that 2028. We'll have to see as the numbers come in over the next. We won't have another valuation until 23. So we'll see how that downturn will affect us. But again, what does fully funding really mean? Fully funding means that on a specific date that you can fund all of your future liabilities, all of your current liabilities, and you basically are able to pay everything on that day. The debate gets to be after you're fully funded and you have excess funds, what do you do with it? We'll save that discussion for another day because we're not quite there yet. But we are an asset, as you do your financial audits, we are considered an asset on your for your whatever borrowings and everything like that you do in the town. It really does help you in various ways that the retirement system is funded as well as it is. The one thing to note when you talk also too about fully funding, what does that mean? It means that unfunded actuarial liability, that $40 million that's in that line item right there, goes away. So over time, when you're fully funded, your assessments should decrease. Now, how much are they going to decrease? I don't know, but that in some cases it could decrease as much as 50%. So it's going to depend on how big you are, your usage of the retirement system, and what your assessments kind of look like. But there will be a decline once we get to that fully funded status. So there will always be an assessment because there's always normal costs to the pension system, and those are your current liabilities. But the unfunded piece will go away. So that's good news for all of the members of all of the member units of our retirement system.
I'm sorry, a quick question on that
Sure.
point. I mean, obviously, all of this is subject to change all over the place. There's a huge array of assumptions in all of this, is my understanding. So we obviously on the asset side, you're exposed to the markets, and obviously we've seen what that happens this year, and that could kind of bring the asset values down a bit. Obviously you've done a good job or the investment team has done a great job of managing through that so far, it seems. But is it fair to say that all the assumptions about the actual liability are subject to material change? For example, if we're fortunate to have people just starting to live longer, for example, would that change all this? Yeah,
it can. And I mean, there's different factors that can change it. Not only that, now the mortality tables usually take that into effect, and those mortality tables that we use for retirement calculations and things of that nature are updated regularly. But things that could change our increase in member benefits. You talk about cost of living increases for the retirees and things of that nature. They do increase the pension liabilities. And so those have usually been we have it built into our funding schedule, I believe, for the 3%. But anything over 3% may or may not be calculated into that. And right now, because of the extreme inflation and the pressures on some of our retirees, the Mass Legislature has looked at allowing up to 5% for a retiree COLA. So some of those things can increase, but most of those things are, again, generated by local option. So those things usually need to be approved by an advisory board, and our advisory board is made up of the town treasurers in all of our towns and districts. So
does
they would have to
does
come-
every town have its own authority to approve or not approve a COLA adjustment?
No, not a COLA. You have a vote because your
Right.
treasurer can vote, but you
Okay.
don't have the authority to say nobody in Great Barrington is going to get one this year. Everybody else will, but we don't want to do
Okay,
it.
all right, we have,
No.
we have a pro rata vote, I presume.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So,
this is Anne. Can
Mhm.
I ask a
Go ahead.
question?
sure.
Yeah, and I apologize. You may have already gone into this, but I just wanted to be clear. When you get your funding, I assume through towns or other institutions such as Great Barrington Fire District's contributions, and employee, I assume employee contributions, the returns on your investment, and possibly also retiree contributions. Is that your fund? When you talk about how a fund goes up or down, that's what's affecting it, correct?
Yeah, well, the investments are the biggest piece. And so basically how the defined benefit plan works is those active members that are currently contributing have what we call an annuity account. So the money goes into, so each individual member has a deduction account, if you will, but all of that money is invested. So when you actually go to collect a benefit, the amount of money that you've paid into the system represents probably about I don't know what it is what it is these days, but that money is invested, and then the money that those investment funds and your annuity account are then used to pay your pension benefit. So the income, if you will, when you talk about movement of, and I was going to kind of get to that in a little bit. Maybe I will, and then maybe I will. I'll wait because it's on it's on the assessment page when we get there. So there's a
that's
little
fine.
bit more of an.
Okay,
I'm kind of getting
Okay.
ahead of myself. So, but the answer is yes. There's things that can make it vary. So yes, there are. Yeah.
And you might be getting to this a little bit later, and just tell me if that's the case. But I thought I heard you say that you are sort of under some pressure or obligation to go to being fully funded in terms of your liabilities, and that as you move toward that, the assessments to contributors to towns or whatnot will likely start to go down a bit. Is that what I
Yes.
was hearing?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
That's eventually what would happen. Yes.
Now that doesn't take into account that cost of living in general is going to be going up, and so
It does.
things
It
are
does
going-
in general because the at least 3% of any COLA that's been granted is built into our funding schedule. So that is already paid for. So it's not going to that there's no bump, if you will, in that because we've already accounted for that.
So can I just, and again, I may be jumping the gun here, and I guess I can wait, but so we're sort of looking at an OPEB fund to sort of
Yes.
just make sure that we have the resources there. But part of that there was this prediction that things are only going to get worse and worse. And I'm hearing you say things are actually going to get better. I mean, and by the way, barring, incredible economic strife or something, but am I misunderstanding?
I'm not really sure. I have limited experience with OPEB. I know that Phil and I have talked about a little bit. That's how our discussions
Okay.
began. And I'm aware of
Right.
OPEB because all of the communities, I think, have some kind of an obligation, I don't know, to fund the future benefits for health insurance costs. So those are a little bit different than what we do in the pension. We do have an obligation to be funded by 2038. And that is, that's what our goal is for the pension fund. But like I said, we've done very well. We've managed the fund very well. So hopefully that's going to be much sooner rather than
I
2038.
see. Okay. Okay. Thank you. That helps.
You're
So
welcome.
you don't do anything with health benefits?
You mean as far as the investments?
Right. There's no
No.
investment to cover cost of health benefits.
No, they're not.
No.
No.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So on the next page, the GASB information, which is part of our actual evaluation, which is page 18. I just wanted to put that out there for you so that you can see what our growth has been since 1/1 of 2013. In 2013, we started at, which was almost 10 years ago, at 77% funded. At 2021, we're at 87.4. So you can see the growth, the decline in our unfunded liability. It does, like you said, the unfunded liability does fluctuate a little bit based on our investment income. But the funding ratio is what we concentrate on, and there it's been a pretty steady increase in that, and that's basically what what we strive for our actuarial. The other thing is to remember that, our actuarial valuation is done in a way, they use a smoothing method so that, and you see the difference in, say, well, your financial says you were 107% funded, but your actuarial valuation only says 87.4. But the 87.4 is because they use a smoothing method to, so that we don't have, you can't predict what investments are going to do, but hopefully that if there was a significant decline of any, in which we did have in 2008, but hopefully we won't have anything like that again, but you don't have those precipitous declines based on the economic factors when you use a little bit more of a smoothing method. So I don't know if anybody has any other questions about the actuarial valuation. And again, that report is available online. So if you ever want to take a look at that, more than welcome to. It's a public document. We have them in our office. They're also on the PARAC webpage. And then the last thing that I have is the appropriation letter. And that's the one that has the PARAC title to it. It says memorandum, Berkshire County Retirement Board. And that's
the first page in the packet.
That's the first page. Yeah. So we're going to look at these reports a little bit and I think it might fill in some of the blanks for you as to, how we tie, what does all of this stuff that we just talked about, how does it all kind of get tied together? And if you go to the first page, this is for our projected appropriations for fiscal year 2023. So the aggregate amount of our appropriation would be $12.4 million. And you can kind of see what the projection is for the appropriation through 2027. Again, it's out to 2027 because fiscal year 27, if we could meet all of our investment and income, we would hopefully be fully funded. But you can see the appropriation growth over those years, and what that's going to mean for, because that's really what I think the town of Great Barrington is looking at, is what does the appropriation look like for the town for the next couple of years. So again, we have a projected funding schedule through 2027. It shows us what the anticipated assessments will be to the towns and districts, and that's the towns and districts, that's the total appropriation. And so as we go through, we've our FY23, we're actually working on, I don't want to make sure I get the years correct for you too. Because when we send out, I want you to understand that the salary figures that we use lag. and they lag about 18 months. So we are actually, for fiscal year 2024, we are using the year-end wages for 2021. So there is a lag in the wages, and the only reason I mention that is because we have had a little bit of changes in the percentage that may be accrued to each town and district because of the pandemic. So during the pandemic, some people were laid off and they didn't work. So the year-end salaries for some of the towns and districts might be artificially low. So what does that mean? It's always, the way we do an assessment is always on the aggregate. And then you take the year-end salaries, the individual. So if it was $1 million and aggregate salaries and Great Barrington had $100,000 in pensionable salaries, it would be 10%. So we can't control, could not control what some of the other towns and districts did during the pandemic as far as whether or not employees were paid. Most of the pays that kind of went down, I think, were in the school districts, because a lot of the paraprofessionals, the school cafeterias, maintenance staff may not have been on full time for the whole year like they normally are. So there, as we've seen, I've seen as I've done retirement calculations, you see probably in assessments that some of those people that were furloughed or didn't get paid, it could affect somewhat. I don't see anything that's a huge jump, but there has been a little bit of jump in the part that as far as the percentage that you may own. So
Jill, let's just spend a minute on this, because this is where
Sure.
when I was poking around on this a while ago and on the OPEB context, where the actual practice differed from what I given zero knowledge, it varied from what I would have expected it to be.
okay.
And that just keeping at a very high level, big picture, the town's pension bill, the allocation we get every year, that we pay every year, I would have guessed that it would be based upon, a big spreadsheet of all the people and all the dollars that are owed those people, and just adding that up, and we would get a bill. But it's actually done in a different way.
Mhm.
And that there's a one pension fund, and each of the town's bill is based upon our, again, using crude terms, our adding up all the salaries of our staff and taking that as a percentage of the county and then calculating it that way. Is that
Correct.
big
Yes.
picture? Is that about right?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And is there any, and I'm sure this is very easy to do, right? I say that as a joke. Is there any contemplation of changing that methodology to something along the lines of what I would have, again, ignorantly thought that it would be based on, is sort of a big allocation by individuals as opposed to the town calculation?
There are a couple other ways to appropriate an assessment. Not necessarily the way you've described, but it would be looking more at towns and districts and their particular usage of the retirement system. Because right now you pay salaries based on active members only. So it doesn't take into account how many of those people actually go through and after 30 years of service actually retire and collect a pension from Great Barrington.
I see.
So
I'm
you
sorry.
only
Go ahead.
see, yeah, so you're only looking, so, we're only looking at it from one point, and that's the point of entry and the point of employment. So yeah, there are different ways, because some towns have, surprisingly, there are some towns that I would have never realized, I do pension payroll, so I see it. But there's some towns that really have, over the years, had long-term public employees, and they worked, that was their career. You see it not so much anymore all the way around, because people have come to public employment. Some are entering younger and as a career, but a lot of people seem to be, their primary employment was disrupted in some way. And so they kind of found their way to public employment. So they may only have 10 or 15, maybe even 20 years of service, but they're still going to get a pension, but it wasn't necessarily what they started out as a career in,
So hypothetically, again, just a crazy question, just to confirm I understand it. If Great Barrington decided that it would be very generous and double the salaries of all of its staff,
Mhm.
this is an extreme example.
Mhm.
If we did that, then our proportion of the overall county pension fund would also increase dramatically, and therefore our pension bill would increase. Is that about right?
Yeah, your pension bill definitely would increase because your salaries increase. So that piece of the pie that you own gets a little bit bigger. I
Right.
don't think that there's really anything that you can do to say that it would be dramatic. It definitely would increase. The other factors that you can't control that may make it a little more or a little less is that you may increase salaries, but I know just in talking to a lot of the treasurers in a lot of the towns, the economic factors of inflation over the last couple of years, and in order to either attract or retain employees, they have to pay them. So you may not be the only person in that. They're all in the same boat. In order to attract the talent that they want and to keep them, they have to compete a little bit more for that, because quite frankly, a lot of, and I've been in the retirement office for 25 years, and people always used to say, and believe me, it's still a great benefit. The benefits are great as a public employee, and they are, but they're not what they were 25 years ago in comparison to private sector. So some towns have had to actually kind of dig a little bit deeper. So yeah, the answer is if they're all doing it, your piece of the pie isn't going to change that much. If you decide to do it by yourself and everybody else is saying, hey, we're getting rid of employees, never mind not paying them, we're just not going to keep them, period. That could sustain a little bit higher than maybe you expected, because you can't control what other people are doing.
Thank you. And again, the only reason I asked that was just to understand the way this works. So I created
Yes.
as
Yep.
obviously an extreme example.
It does. Yeah. And
Right.
I hesitate to, I'm answering it honestly, but I don't want it to, I really don't want anyone to say, well, geez, Great Barrington didn't give anybody a raise this year because they didn't want their
Right,
pension
right,
share to
right.
go up, because that's not fair.
No,
to the
I
employees.
agree. We need
Yeah.
to, these are
Yeah.
these are
So
very
the,
important topics,
yeah.
so.
I mean, it's a cost of doing business. I will tell you on the flip side of that, though, and I can try to track down the formula for that, for this, but you as a town, not you and personally, but the town of Great Barrington, because the pension benefit actually is better than a Social Security benefit. I will admit that it is for long-term employees, not necessarily for short-term employees, but the benefit is better than Social Security, and the town of Great Barrington pays less in an assessment than you would if you were paying into Social Security for your employees. So you do pay less because we are funded as well as we are, and because things are going well. So you do have a benefit there. I mean, because whether you're in Social Security or you're in retirement, it's a cost of doing business. And so I would say that your cost of doing business with us is less than it would be with Social Security.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we've had almost an hour of your time, so we probably should think about.
Yeah, I was going to say, if
maybe-
anybody has any, and that's kind of the end of what I had as far as what I prepared for you. Again, like I said, as far as we didn't really get into the actual pension benefits themselves. If somebody has any questions about plans, you can probably touch base with Mark or Alicia in the treasurer's office. We're planning on being there. Like I said, I think it's October 28th. We'll be there in the morning. We're going to provide a couple of retirement seminars for the current employees. So if anybody has any interest, you're more than welcome to join us. And if you have any other questions for me before we call it a night, I'm more than happy to answer them. And,
Any other questions? One last one, and I'll,
Sure.
is it seems like if we wanted to do the math and project our town assessment, we could just use your projected assessments.
yes, you
and
could.
just take our percentage and
Yeah,
say,
and your
every-
percentage, I would say, is going to stay somewhere between 8 and 9%. I mean, it's fluctuated at that 8.5, 8.4 in there, but between 8 and 9 is going to give you basically what you could project that to be.
Okay, we need to be very careful with that because obviously it can change to a variety of factors.
can.
We would
can.
have a little more
Yeah.
visibility into that. Okay,
Yes.
great, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And thanks for having me here. And you know where to reach me if you need me at the retirement office. I'm there Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, unless they're on the road with the seminar, but feel free. Any other questions if you think of later, if you want to give me a call, I'm available.
Well,
Thank you.
terrific. Again,
Thank you.
Thank
any
you.
questions? Yeah, thank you very much for your time, Sheila.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so, all right, we'll have a quiz and all of that at our next meeting. I just want to. Okay. A lot of numbers there, but it was very, very important and very informative. Just, all right, continuing along. We're going to move into our continued discussion of targeted financial assistance to resident customers of Housatonic Waterworks. And let me make some quick introductory comments there, and then I will probably shut up and let the others speak. But I just want to sort of emphasize that, and I'm looking back at the proposal that was in the prior month's packet. Let me just repeat that my understanding, and I did confirm this with Mark, is that the Finance Committee obviously has no ability to implement this program. We don't have that authority. All we can do is allocate money from our reserve fund and perhaps make a recommendation to the select board that we think this is a good idea. That's what we can do. So, you know, with that in mind, my personal view is that it's not, what's the right term without sounding critical? It's not incredibly productive for us to debate or to join into the debate on a lot of the issues relating to the waterworks and whether or not the waterworks water is good or unhealthy or somewhere in the middle. Again, because I'm not sure anyone cares that much about our view other than the fact that we're all residents and we vote. Any program that we would recommend or provide funds for would only happen if the select board independently decides that it's a good idea and it's necessary. So I don't want to quash any debate or discussion. I can't do that. That's not appropriate. But I just wanted to sort of chime in on that, and you know, so I don't. I made that point, so I'll shut up. So what I would suggest is that we continue to discuss whether or not we would want to whether or not we'd want to authorize funds or not authorize funds for some type of short-term assistance program to some portion of Housatonic residents, and that's what I sketched out in that last month's packet.
So I have a question here. I'm a little bit confused about all this because I thought last time we spoke, you said we did have an authority over that reserve fund, but now I'm understanding the authority is only for us to recommend, so it's not a real authority.
No, I'm sorry. We have authority over the money.
Yeah.
We can allocate the money.
Yeah.
To the select board, but we cannot compel them to use it for that purpose.
Right. Okay. So, okay. Now I understand. So what we are saying, basically the decision is with select board, really. I mean, the final decision.
Correct.
I mean, we can suggest that they can.
Yeah.
So my other question is then, why do we think select board did not even consider that? I mean, I again, you know, I'm sure they have been quite involved with a lot of, you know, issues around it, right? I mean, they've obviously been working on that whole issue for quite a while, but I was just kind of wondering, why do we think there was something? I mean, if they didn't think it was important, will they think now it's important and we suggested? I mean, I'm just a little bit confused by that.
It's a fair question. Another important point is if you had time to listen, I had time to listen to the select board meeting last night on this same topic. And Mark, you'll correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but I think at the conclusion of that meeting, I think the select board made it clear that they are working on some type of program for some type of short-term assistance to Houstonic Waterworks customers.
Mhm,
And that's where they left it. They didn't go into further detail, and that's their prerogative.
mhm, mhm.
So but I think they made it clear they are
Okay,
working on something that big picture has objectives that are similar to what is outlined in that one pager in our packet from last month. Mark, is that a fair characterization?
Yes, I think that's fair. We are in line for some state funding to provide temporary relief to Houstonic Waterworks customers. And at the same time, the board is looking at long-term solutions, and that's what our conversation was about yesterday.
right. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me because I think, I mean, I myself kind of reluctant to go with the short term because I really don't think it's gonna do much. But if we can find, a solution for short term that's gonna really make a difference, then I'm all for it. But I kind of feel with the amount of money we have. And the other issue I had with that proposal, Phil, was I kind of feel that if we are going to suggest anything, I think it should be made available to all residents there who have some issues with the water. I don't think we should be making a judgment as to, what their socioeconomic situation is, because I think there are residents, they pay for the, for the water service, and they maybe are not getting it, or some of them are not getting it. So I think if we decide to do that, I would like it to make it like, pretty much all inclusive. I would not want to, make some decisions about who deserves it and who doesn't.
I just comment on.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
That. I really understand the desire to have everyone benefit from the program. I think that the intent, though, was realistic in that we only have so much money. And how do you try to make a difference for the people that you feel you can afford to make a difference for? Am I misstating that, Phil? I mean, I think that was part of your rationale.
No, I hear your point. I think you're correctly restating the rationale for what I proposed. I think that my personal view is that while the situation with Houstonic Waterworks water quality is alarming, disarming, unfortunate, incredibly unpleasant, unhealthy, whatever words you want to use. There probably are people in the town that have the economic means to fix it on their own, and they don't need additional town support. And some of those people have probably over the years already installed a well, as an example, and they're just probably disconnected from Houstonic water. Or there are people who just have the economic ability, the discretionary income to just buy large bottles of bottled water, large coolers, or install a home filter if in fact they're a homeowner. So my idea was that the town should not use town funds to assist those people. They're able to take care of themselves. So that was again, it's obviously different from what Milena is describing, but that was my rationale.
No, I mean, I was describing, how I would want to address this issue if we decide to go forward, because again, I don't want to make any judgment on, who deserves it or doesn't, because it's an issue for the community, and we should treat the community as a whole. That's where I stand on it. But again, short term to me, I don't know how much good it's gonna do. So are we taking, months, supply of bottled water? So the question I have also, maybe Mark, if he could just give us an idea in terms of the time frame. I know in terms of getting some financial support from the state or some other assistance. Are we talking 6 months, 12 months, more than that?
I check in almost weekly, and I can't answer that question right now.
Don't have it. Yeah. Okay.
This is Anne. I have my hand up.
Yep, yeah, there, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. So I guess I just wanted to follow up. I mean, Elena, I agree with you. I think it'd be great to open it up to everyone. I just think the hard part is there's approximately 800 customers, and yeah, I mean, we'll run out of funds almost immediately. The other is, I guess, it is, and this also goes to Melena, your second question, which is the timeline. I mean, it's so hard to know what to do when we've applied for state funds, which that's great, and I really hope we'll get them and we'll get them fast. But you know, this could drag on for more than a year, less 6 months, or 6 weeks. I just don't know. And I mean, I did do some research between our last meeting and this meeting, and a lot of towns, Situate, Mass, I think some of you may have been familiar with this, had a manganese problem earlier this summer, and they made water available to residents. I don't know if they had any means testing, but they, I think, probably did have state funding because it's a public water source. I looked at the website of the water company that presented to us yesterday, and right on their website, they say, oh, if you're having difficulty paying your water bill, you can contact us. And I thought, I understand that this isn't about paying the bill to the company, but it's paying for the cost of water overall. So I guess, I just think it'd be, what I like, Bill, about this proposal is it's just thinking of strategies to help residents whose water is brown, more often than it should be, which is for some a lot. So, I brought this up at last night's meeting during citizen speak, that I think the select board has been spending the majority of their time on long-term planning on how to address this, which I think is great. And I was really pleased to see the presentation last night, but I can imagine there's not much time to think about what to do in the short term. And I just feel, maybe we should have a joint meeting with the finance committee and the select board to talk about strategies and what they would cost. I guess I just feel like we're sort of stuck.
Yeah, I like that idea. I think it would maybe it would be more productive if we had that conversation with them and just kind of see, if they have, they may have some insights in terms of some of the work that's being done, and what is the timetable here, which I think, again, that's really the most difficult part of this decision altogether, because if we provide funds and it's going to last for 2 months and people then go back to brown water, for next 2 years, I don't know how much we get accomplished, frankly. So and maybe there are some other resources that the town could marshal for that, and then make it a little bit more substantial. And my other issue is, I don't know if there is a way for us to get away from the bottled water, and I don't know if there is a way to maybe have some cisterns with water, bring it on a different scale, and also get around the environmental impact. So maybe we could brainstorm more about it with the select board and see if they have some other, because I'm sure they look at some other scenarios, other towns, and maybe they have some other suggestions for us.
Richard, go ahead.
I did note in the newsletter, which I get each month, there was a small notice about water refilling stations that existed in Great Barrington that were not connected to the HWW system. And it noted in here that people from Housatonic could use this, I imagine, to refill containers that they have for water. This is a source that's not buying bottled water, but the town is providing the water. I've not heard this highlighted anywhere else, and it does seem like a viable short-term option.
Actually, Rich, I think that was something that Steve Bannon suggested. I've seen it somewhere. He referred to it in either a meeting or somewhere, and I think it's a very good point, actually.
It actually, I believe it actually exists. It's not something that they're talking
It's
about.
there, right? Exactly. It's available right
There
now.
and it's
Yeah,
available.
yeah.
Although I do believe these are outdoor water stations that are closed when the temperatures freeze.
That's right, they're seasonal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they're seasonal. Is that something that could be looked into some way that this water could be made available that would get people through the winter? To me, that would be a good use of some of the money we have.
I agree. Yeah.
Some way to make that available,
So we're looking
not
at,
just cut it down, you know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
we've discussed 3 different options if and when we receive the funding. Some kind of
And-
bottled water,
We? Oh, okay. Mhm.
the select board.
Okay, thank you.
I've done some rough math on providing bottled water during the worst 8 to 10 weeks of the summer season to every household in Housatonic. We were looking at funding home filtration units or grants for the installation of home filtration units. And the third option we discussed was potentially getting one of those 1, 3, and 5 gallon refilling stations, similar to what you see at the Berkshire Co-op when you walk in the front door. It could be available year-round in a town building. Again, until we have the funding from the state and we know how much funding that is, it's really hard to say what of those 3 or more, which one of those options or more that we could offer to the residents. I want to apologize. I actually raised my hand for Madonna, who's on my phone, so that she can speak to the board. So.
oh, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
I saw the hand, but I figured you knew what it was there for.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Go ahead. Yeah.
So I guess I'd like Melena's suggestions. And Mark, I actually have one for you. Could a municipal building, like the fire station, be available to have people from Housatonic get water?
In a filling station, like I just described?
Yes.
Yes.
We haven't discussed that just yet, what location would be available. We're again just trying to secure funding so that we can make one or more of those options available to residents.
And I'd like the suggestion to maybe have the finance committee do a joint meeting with the select board. That's all I have to say.
I guess I'm just wondering, so, right, you have been looking into various options and thinking about how much they would cost, and would that not be something to bring to the finance committee?
Yes, my question as well.
So, Mark, when you guys look at those 3 options, or when you actually put those water filling stations in, what is the cost of these things, just roughly?
I have to admit, this is very early on in the conversation. We're just trying to get a sense for how much money the state.
No, I understand, but I
provides.
mean, but the town put the filling stations in, right? So, I mean, though they are seasonal, they are somehow different, but just a ballpark number, what are we talking about here?
To purchase a 1, 3, and 5 gallon refilling station similar to
Yeah,
the one.
yeah.
Yes.
I honestly don't know. I've reached out to 3 companies to get proposals.
You haven't got any?
And I have a meeting scheduled with one of them. They have so many different options available. They really need more information from
I see.
us.
And how much was to put the refilling stations that we have in Great Barrington? Do you remember?
I don't know. They were installed my first year here,
I see.
and the funding was already it was raised by
Well,
donations.
before, okay.
So I wasn't involved in that
I
process.
see. Okay. So it's a little bit difficult because we don't really know what would be the cost of each of the options either at this point. Yeah.
If I could just ask again, it does sound to me like a little bit putting the cart before the horse. You're looking for state funding, but we have a funding source available through the finance committee. And if we knew what the funding needed was, we wouldn't have to wait the 2 or 3 years it takes for the state to agree to fund something. We might be able to step in. It's you know, it could be that it's nowhere near enough money to do it. I'm not saying it is, but rather than wait for the funding source to come in, let's find out how much it is, and then we can suggest to the select board that this money is available if it's something that's possible.
So I'll just touch on that briefly because I want to just say, I don't think it's 2 to 3 years out before the funding is available to us.
I'm sorry, a little facetious. My apologies.
Yeah, I do expect that funding much sooner. But I want to just tell you that, sorry, we're getting some feedback here. One of the reasons that I did not come before this board seeking funding for bottled water sooner is because I ran some numbers in order to be able to provide 2 5-gallon jugs to every household in Housatonic for an 8-week period. And it was pushing a 6-figure number, which would almost exhaust your reserve fund for the year. So it didn't seem like a viable option at the time.
Yeah,
It's incredibly expensive.
right.
Well, but I guess we can think of it that if, you know, we do know that the winter months are not as bad as the summer months. I think we could imagine that it wouldn't be every household. And again, it's not every household, even in the summer, and, you know, it's not every single, and then, so next summer is in next year's budget season. And if it looks like, you know, maybe we should consider putting some money aside just in case this time. We didn't have any put aside this summer, but maybe we should think about it. So I still think we should pursue and find out what the different cost options are in the short term and what they would cost and how we could possibly fund them. I mean, the other thing I think we also want to think about, and I don't know if this is true, but I don't want the state to come back and say, oh, you're already doing something, so we're not going to fund you. So, I mean, I realize there's a complicated balance here, but I think just knowing what the options are and what they're going to cost, Mark, just hearing that information was helpful.
Yeah, I think we all agree that, you know, understanding the cost of each option will be the right way to start this. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we're trying to get a better sense for what those options will look like, so that when the funding does arrive, which I do expect it to, I just don't know when, we are ready to go and we don't have to waste any more time sourcing out costs.
So you're
No, I think that's-
expecting any time, you're expecting within a couple of months, imminently, funding to be available?
I hope so. It's hard for me to say because I'm not getting a clear answer from the state at this time, but I'm aware that some funding has been appropriated for this purpose. So
The only reason I ask is just that the reason Phil brought this proposal to us in the first place was that time has been going by and going by and going by and going by. And that is why we're searching for a way to provide some assistance. So thank you for all you're doing.
Yes, so here's where I come out. My concern is, I think everyone's doing all the right things. The options that Mark is pursuing, I think, make sense. I think Madonna's idea about a filling station at the fire station is a good one. I guess that would require, there needs to be an installation there. That's something, that requires work and a service provider and plumbing and things that don't happen that quickly. But I come back to my initial concern that was behind this proposal, and that is, to the extent that there are Houstonic Waterworks customers, and in particular seniors who are at greater risk for any medical issues that may be occurring. That was made very clear by the company in their communications, that seniors are at greater risk. So to the extent there are people in Houstonic that use Houstonic water, in particular seniors, who going into the winter, where we'll have continued inflation of many expenses, including the cost of heat, if there are individuals there that are unable to purchase bottled water just for drinking, just forgetting about showering and cooking, if they're drinking water that they don't feel comfortable drinking, solely because they can't afford the bottled water, because they are economically, financially challenged to begin with, then I believe we should be allocating some money for a very targeted but very prompt assistance to those individuals. So I'd like to make a motion that the Finance Committee basically communicate to the Select Board that we are allocating at this point up to $30,000 to provide assistance to residents of Housatonic who are already participating in a economic assistance program under which they've already been assessed to be of financial need. That could include, but not limited to, what I have in the one pager: food stamps, Medicaid, and if they're already participating in the home energy assistance program, all of which have income tests that have extremely low thresholds. So these are people who have very limited incomes. So practically speaking, that would mean, and I'm going on, I'm sorry, but practically speaking, it would mean that if these individuals exist, and we don't know they exist, but I'm presuming that they do in some number. We were saying if they were to come forward and confirm their participation in one of these income means tested programs, then the town should be prepared to provide them with a modest additional stipend, which would allow them to buy bottled water. Finger in the air guesstimate, I don't think that would aggregate to a big number. Then I did some crude math there, and that's what's behind my 30,000 number. If we needed to allocate more, then we should consider more, but we have to start somewhere, and there are many, many unknowns here. This means testing would not involve looking at people's income taxes or pay stubs at all. It would require that they already have gone through that process and have qualified for food stamps or another program, and they would have those individuals would have the obligation to come to the town under some procedure that we have to figure out, and they have to come to the town and confirm they're already in the program. And under those circumstances, they would get, a very modest additional stipend intended for water. So that was a very long-winded motion. Hopefully hopefully at least communicated it clearly as to what it's intended to be.
So would you mind just qualifying how many people do you think, in your assumptions behind the 30,000 that would cover, and what do you mean by modest stipend? I mean, so that we have an idea.
I did some very crude math.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think I basically assumed in my math, I assumed bottled water of $20 a week. And I said that there are 800 Houstonic Waterworks customers. And if we assume that 2.5% to 5% are eligible, then the program would cost somewhere around 20 to 40,000 for the year. Just
But this is for the year, so you're assuming 5% of people.
right. So I've layered assumption upon assumption,
Okay.
there. So its value is very
Oh,
limited.
that's fine. No, I mean,
But I just,
that's
you know, so it's
important.
$20 a week for whomever would qualify for, so $1,000, it's $1,000 a year. So again, finger in the air, but that's how I got to that kind of number. I'll guarantee you that that estimate is wrong. But that was the math that I did. So again, we can't compel the select board to do this. I'm just saying that I'm making a motion that we allocate money for the select board to do something like this, something along these lines. It would be their decision of working with Mark and town staff to figure out if that's doable, if they want to do that, if it makes sense. Or maybe it would all become irrelevant because the state money would show up in the very near term future. But I'm not. So that's the motion. But my opinion is that I don't feel comfortable with doing nothing at this point. That's the motion.
This is Ann, I'll second that motion.
Any discussion?
I guess I just want to highlight. that,
Madonna's
you know,
raising her
Phil,
hand.
you mentioned-
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Can you? No, we can't hear you, so you got to use the.
The Mark phone system.
Mark,
Okay, go ahead, Madonna, you're all set.
Yeah, all right. Go ahead.
I just want to say, I still think
Speak up, please.
that it's still premature. I still like the idea of going to the select board, having a joint meeting and crunching some numbers before we just put in $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. That's my opinion. I'm not in favor of this motion.
What I should have made clear in my motion is that I actually don't believe a joint meeting is appropriate. I think that this is a select board decision. I think we would just be meddling in their decision-making process. I don't think there's too many cooks in the kitchen. I think that's their decision working with town staff. So part of my motion would be that we allocate the money and stop there. There would be no need. I don't believe there's a need for a joint meeting.
I'd like to hear more number crunching from the town manager and the select board.
Any other discussion?
I mean, I kind of agree. I think it's premature. I think we need to understand what is the cost, what are the other options. You know, I know where you are coming from, and I appreciate that. But you may have the same argument for people who have, you know, little babies. You know, they may need the water too, or other people. So again, I would like us to have an option that would be available to everyone, and you know, and it would be an option that would be actually more long term than this. And I understand we have limited funds, so you know but maybe there is a possibility that there will be some funding coming from the state, and we can offer people something that's going to be meaningful. I'm just concerned that they are going to look at it and they will say, this is all what this town did, and didn't include me, it didn't include my neighbor. And it just, I feel like it's going to maybe create more aggravation than, and I know it, the intent is very good and it's very noble, but I'm concerned about it.
Also, in your motion, we've been talking that the select board is the entity that has to decide how to provide assistance. The motion and the money that we're setting aside, though, is very specifically set aside for the specific program that you've spelled out, or is it set aside for the select board to use to fund a way, and this is our suggestion. Do you understand what my question is?
Oh, yeah, no, it's good. It's a good question. I think it's getting a little, it's getting a little complicated, but I would say that I would advocate saying we're allocating a capped amount, $30,000. And that our suggestion is it could be used for a program, something along the lines of this one-page summary. But I would give them the ability to use it as they see fit at the end of the day.
Okay, so it does give them the option to make a decision that would use the money in some other fashion, but with the intent being the same.
Correct. That would be my preference, yes.
Okay.
I guess this is Anne, and so while, I support the motion, I guess the argument that a joint meeting with the select board wouldn't be beneficial at this point. So is the assumption that if we get the state funding, and again, it's so difficult because we sort of are dealing with, we don't know. I mean, Mark, is there a certain amount we apply to for state funding? We don't, and we'll get that or nothing, or we've applied for some funding and we're going to get something or nothing. I mean, do we even have a ballpark about what the amount that would be coming from the state is?
Not at this time, no.
Right. So, I mean, I guess I would really be interested in hearing what are some of the thoughts. What are the different options? And can I ask Mark, the state funding, will it be restricted, or we can use it however we want to assist in water provision?
The request was funding to provide temporary relief to the residents.
Okay, so it wasn't.
So without any specific conditions.
I do think it's. Yes, I'm sorry, Mark, I'm on the phone, and I can't, there was some feedback. So it does seem to me that we should be coming up with some assessments of the different relief that we can offer, how much it would cost, how long it would take to implement. And again, I still feel, and why I so appreciate what Bill has done here, is that I think the select board has been understandably busy, focused on looking at long-term solutions, and there hasn't, I think a lot of committees are sort of, I think, spinning, trying to come up with, short-term strategies here. So I think something that gets us moving in the short-term realm, and, I don't want to just dump it back on the select board. I think if other committees can help out here, I think it'd be worth it. But I guess I'm just not sure what the select board wants.
I hear you, Ann. I think the select board always, obviously, we have a process for the reserve account where if the town staff and Mark in particular want to allocate that money to something, they put together a 1 or 2 pager and they say we'd like to use the money for that purposes. We just had that process with the short-term rental software. So, that's always a possible option, and obviously our ears would be, wide open on that. I think that, again, my take on that is I hear what you're saying. It sounds like the select board has already asked Mark and his staff of hundreds to to figure out exactly what to do to provide some assistance and getting into the operational details of figuring out, well, who would put in a water station and what would be the cost of the plumbing and how actually would that work? So I'm not sure we're supposed to get involved with that as a committee.
Well, so would it make more sense to put a motion to the select board saying, we have a reserve fund and we would be very interested in hearing your proposal for funding to provide some relief to Housatonic water customers?
I guess we could do that. Yeah, that's certainly another option if you want to make that motion.
We already have a motion on the table, though, do we?
We do, yeah.
We do. Good point. Madonna, go ahead.
you can do an amendment to the motion.
I'm
That's
sorry, I
true.
couldn't hear.
Sorry, didn't
She's saying
understand
that,
that.
I'm sorry, she's saying that we could amend the existing motion, which I think is
Correct.
a point well taken.
Philip,
I'm not inclined to do that. Others can do that.
you have a few hands up too, Philip, just so you know.
From the public? Or from members?
Both.
Both. Okay, so I don't see any of the hands, so please.
Oh, okay.
help me out
Yeah.
there.
And your hand up was,
Yeah.
you were first.
My hand belongs to be, I don't know how to put my hand down. Do I do star 9 again?
I'll do it for you. You're all
Yeah,
set.
okay.
Okay,
And,
thank you. Thank you.
Steve Bannon also has his hand up, so I'll go ahead and open his mic.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think Ann's suggestion makes the most sense. If you offer to the select board that there's a reserve fund, and if we think we need it, that we should contact you and you encourage us to do it. That makes the most sense right now. And we would appreciate that.
Steve, can I just,
Yes.
can I sort of come back with that? I guess I would say it's more than we would say it's there for you. We'd like to hear some ideas about how you might use it. So I guess I'm willing to go to a suggested, an amended motion, which might be a slightly different motion, but that we request that, so we, the finance committee, are willing to hear proposals and interested in hearing proposals from the select board on how the reserve, some portion of the reserve fund might be used to provide immediate and albeit short-term assistance to Housatonic residents whose water is concerning to them. And this proposal that the finance committee looked at is one possible proposal of many things that the select board to consider and come back to us with. That's my very long-winded.
Did we have a specific amount in the motion?
I would actually say if the select board's coming back with proposals, I would say some portion. I don't think we need to come up with the amount.
Yeah, I agree. I think the amount should be dependent on how they want to use it. I agree. Yeah.
Do we
But
have
this
a,
is but one of many possible options that they could come back to us with their recommendations.
Madonna? Nope, not working.
I second the motion as well, so, okay.
Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. I think that's what Madonna was trying to
Go
do.
ahead, Madonna. Did you have anything else?
I could read her lips. I got it.
All right, any further discussion on that amended motion? All right. All right, seeing none, we could go to roll call vote, qualified by the fact that if this were to pass, we need Anne to write that out promptly so we get it right.
Someone can remember it. Yeah.
And I just want to put one qualifier in about this amended motion, which I know is already amended, but that the select board come back to us in a timely manner with some proposals. Notice I did not put any dates in.
Okay.
Like that addition.
So the motion is second. Why don't we have a roll call vote on that amended motion? Richard,
Aye.
Milena,
Aye.
Madonna? It's an aye. All right. Thumb up in the air. Anne?
Aye.
And I am aye as well. Okay, so there we go. Steve, thank you for your input there. It was very helpful. And Anne, you we're totally relying on you to type that out.
We have every confidence.
I will type it out and send it over.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Steve, what is the right way to communicate that? Should we send a brief email to say Steve and to Lee as vice chair and to say this is our motion?
Yeah, that's fine. We'll get it to all the select board members as soon as you get it to us. You send it to Mark and that'll be fine. He'll get it right to us.
Okay, send them on. Okay, terrific. All right, next on the agenda, update from Finance Committee representative on the Community Preservation Committee. I think that's very brief, but Richard, why don't you provide that if you could?
They have agreed to have me as a representative on the Community Preservation Committee with Phil as a backup should an emergency arise. They set their meeting in sort of as they know they're ready, then they set another meeting. I believe our next meeting is on the 1st of November at 5 p.m.
Okay. Great. Okay, so I think that's it's a major achievement for us. We've been trying to get that spot filled for quite a while.
Just a question for you or for the committee. When I attend, ought I to let you know as a bullet on our next meeting if anything substantive occurred, or do we just assume that their minutes will cover that?
It's a very good question. I don't know the exact answer. I think in the past, your predecessor has just provided a very brief overview, you know, sort of a minute or two.
So
would you agree with my recollection on that?
Yeah. Yeah, and Richard, also, you know, particularly I think during this period of the year, sort of upcoming dates and deadlines, just so that Finance Committee members are aware of what the timeline is for the proposals and the review and evaluation.
Okay, and during the committee member announcements, right, at the beginning of the meeting?
No, we would give you a
Correct.
slot like this one here in the agenda. You'd have.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. After the 1st of November, yes.
Great, okay. Thank you. All right, just future meetings. I just added the January meeting based on the third Tuesday of the month. I didn't go to, I was too lazy to add more, but we'll continue unless we decide otherwise. It would just be the third Tuesday of the month.
Excellent.
And there you can see our next meeting is November 15th. And just highlighting that we're going off that schedule for December because of the holidays.
Very good.
Citizen speak time. Anyone out there? Sounds like
No hands up.
no hands up.
Actually,
Okay.
I take that back. You have one hand up.
Okay. All right.
Eileen,
You're speaking as a citizen or as media?
Eileen, you just have to unmute yourself on your end. You're open on this end. I'll send you a request to unmute.
Okay,
There you go.
all right.
There
I
you
think I'm actually asking this as a news medium. Would like to know from Mark or Steve why the vote and the discussion to seek the state funds was in an executive session. I'm not aware of a reason for that.
No,
Wouldn't-
we were in executive session for other reasons.
Yes, but you conducted.
I don't think the board ever took a vote on that anyway. Steve, your mic is open. Is that-
No, this was mostly a discussion with Mark by individual members. This was not a detailed discussion. Mark suggested that we look at state funding and he went ahead and did it. This was not some long discussion in executive session, because you're right, Eileen. There'd be no appropriate reason to discuss that in executive session.
Then the discussion with individual members, I
Yeah,
assume.
well, for instance, Mark and I would talk about it and he would have discussions with both Adam and Smitty.
Yeah,
It's, it's a strong town manager form of government. The select board didn't run this operation. It was Mark's idea and he just kept the select board updated.
In executive session.
No, individually.
Yeah, I meet with each of the 5 select board members every week, Eileen.
What state grant exactly are you looking for, please?
It's not a state grant. It's part of an economic development bill, actually. I don't know, I don't have it offhand, I'd have to ask, but
It's actually not an application, Eileen. It's something that we put in towards both, well, Adam when he was there and Smitty, and they've worked on getting some funding for us. And so far, we've gotten positive feedback, but we haven't gotten anything official yet.
Um, so you're asking for state money, but you don't know from where in the state, what budget, what agency?
I can probably look up the actual bill and send it to you. I mean, I just don't have it in front of me at the moment.
I'd appreciate that if you'd look it up.
Mhm.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, thank you, Eileen. I think so that probably includes, concludes media time. So I guess we're ready to move to adjournment. We have a motion.
I move that we adjourn.
Second,
Seconded.
all in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Thank you, Mark.
Aye,
Good
Bill,
night.
thank you.
Good night.